The navigator who got lost in stars. In the vast darkness between stars, where nebulae bloom like cosmic flowers and planets drift in their eternal dance, there sailed a ship called the Wandering Heart. And aboard this ship lived a navigator named Zara who had a very unusual problem for someone whose entire job was knowing where things were. She kept getting lost. Not just a little lost, spectacularly, impossibly lost. Lost in ways that defied the mathematics of navigation, the logic of star charts, and the patience of her crew. Zara was 32 years old and had been navigating starships since she was 18. She'd graduated top of her class from the Lunar Navigation Academy, had memorized the positions of 10,000 stars, could calculate jump coordinates in her head faster than most ship computers. And yet somehow she always ended up somewhere she hadn't intended to be. When she plotted a course to Alpha Centauri, the ship emerged near a beautiful binary star system no one had charted. When she aimed for a trading post at Kepler 442, they found themselves at an abandoned space station full of ancient art. When she tried to take the simple, straight route home to Earth, they discovered a planet where the oceans sang. Her captain, a patient woman named Rivera who'd been flying ships for 40 years, had long since stopped being frustrated by Zara's navigational errors. "Where are we today, Navigator Chin?" Rivera would ask with resigned amusement whenever they dropped out of hyperspace. "I have absolutely no idea, Captain," Zara would admit, pulling up the star charts. "But I can tell you where I tried to go." The Wandering Heart was a small cargo vessel with a crew of 7. They hauled supplies between the colony worlds. Nothing glamorous, nothing dangerous, just honest work keeping the far-flung human settlements connected. Or at least that's what they were supposed to do. In practice, thanks to Zara's navigation, they'd become accidental explorers. They discovered 12 new star systems, found 3 habitable planets, stumbled upon ancient alien artifacts, beautiful nebulae, and once, memorably, a space station run entirely by cats, though no one was quite sure how the cats had gotten there or learned to operate life support systems. "You're the luckiest navigator in the fleet," Rivera told Zara after their 6th accidental discovery. "Or the unluckiest depending on how you look at it. You can't get us where we're trying to go, but you always get us somewhere interesting." Zara tried not to see it as a compliment. She'd spent years feeling like a failure, like she was somehow broken in a fundamental way that made her terrible at the one job she'd trained for her entire adult life. But at 32, after 14 years of getting lost, she'd made an uneasy peace with her peculiar talent. She was still embarrassed by it, still wished she could navigate normally. But she'd stopped trying to fix something that apparently couldn't be fixed. Then one day everything changed. The Wandering Heart received an urgent contract. A rush delivery of medical supplies to a colony on Tau Ceti. The colony was experiencing an outbreak of Martian fever, and they needed the medicine within 3 days or people would die. "This is important, Zara," Rivera said seriously, standing in the navigation bay. "No detours. No accidental discoveries. We need to get these supplies there on time. Can you do that?" Zara looked at her star charts, at the carefully calculated route to Tau Ceti. It was a simple jump. Only 2 hyperspace transitions, both along well-traveled routes. Any competent navigator could do it blindfolded. "I'll try," Zara said, which was all she ever promised. She input the coordinates with extra care, triple-checking every calculation. The crew strapped in. The hyperspace drive spun up. And Zara initiated the jump with a silent prayer to whatever cosmic forces governed her terrible sense of direction. "Please, just this once, let me get it right." The ship dropped into hyperspace, that strange non-space where physics bent and distance became meaningless. They should have traveled for 6 hours, emerged near a way station, refueled, then made the second jump to Tau Ceti. Instead, after only 2 hours, the ship shuddered and dropped out of hyperspace unexpectedly. Alarms blared. The crew rushed to their stations. And Zara pulled up the navigation display with a sinking feeling in her stomach. "Where are we?" Rivera asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "I don't know," Zara admitted, studying the star positions. "This isn't anywhere near our planned route. I don't even recognize these constellations. We're very lost." "How lost?" Zara ran the stellar positions through the ship's database. The computer churned for several minutes, far longer than usual, before finally producing a result. "We're approximately 2,000 light-years from our planned route," Zara said, her voice barely a whisper. In a region of space that's not on any of our charts. I don't know where we are. I don't know how we got here. And I don't know how to get back. The bridge fell silent. 2,000 light-years off course. With dying colonists waiting for medicine that would never arrive. This wasn't an amusing detour anymore. This was disaster. Rivera's face was grim. How long to calculate a route back? I don't know. Hours? Days? I need to identify our position first, and nothing in this sky matches any star chart we have. It's like we jumped completely outside explored space. Then start working. Everyone else, full system check. I want to know if the unexpected exit from hyperspace damaged anything. Rivera looked at Zara, and for the first time in their 7 years working together, Zara saw disappointment in her captain's eyes. Fix this, navigator. People are counting on us. Zara worked through the night trying to identify their position. She compared star patterns, searched for any familiar constellations, ran every algorithm she knew. But the stars here were wrong. Not just unfamiliar but arranged in patterns that shouldn't exist given their jump trajectory. It was as if they'd jumped not just through space, but somehow sideways into a different region of the galaxy entirely. 12 hours later, exhausted and no closer to answers, Zara stood in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the unfamiliar stars, fighting back tears of frustration. I've ruined everything, she whispered to the empty room. All those other times getting lost was harmless. Amusing even. But this time people will die because I can't do my job. Because I'm broken somehow. Because I'm a failure. You're not a failure, a voice said behind her. Zara turned to find Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the ship's medical officer and more importantly her closest friend. Yuki had been on the Wandering Heart for 5 years, and had never once made Zara feel bad about her navigational peculiarities. Yes, I am. I had one job, get us to Tau Ceti, and I got us lost 2,000 light-years away instead. People are dying, Yuki. Because of me. Yuki sat down on the observation bench, gazing out at the stars. Do you know why I became a doctor? Zara shook her head. Because I'm terrible at it. What? You're an excellent doctor. The best I've ever seen. Now yes. But when I started, I was awful. I froze during emergencies. I misdiagnosed simple conditions. I nearly killed a patient because I administered the wrong medication. Yuki's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. I failed so spectacularly during my residency that my supervisor recommended I find a different career. I didn't know that. I don't talk about it much. But the point is I kept failing until I figured out why. And the why was simple. I was trying to be the kind of doctor I thought I should be instead of the kind of doctor I actually was. Book-smart, fast-acting, confident. But that wasn't me. I'm slow, methodical, empathetic. I need time to think, to consider, to connect with patients. Once I accepted that and found a context where my actual skills were valuable, ship's doctor on a small crew where I know everyone personally, I stopped failing. He looked at Zara. Maybe you're not a bad navigator. Maybe you're just navigating in the wrong way toward the wrong destinations. You always get us somewhere. Just never where you intend to go. That's not failure. That's a different kind of skill. You're not navigating toward destinations, you're navigating toward something else. Maybe. Or discovery. Or wherever the universe wants us to be. That's not navigation. That's just random chance. Is it though? 6 years of random chance. That always leads to discoveries. That never leads to danger or death. That always finds something interesting or important. Yuki smiled. The mathematician in me says that's statistically impossible. Which means something else is happening. You're navigating, just not by the rules everyone else uses. Before Zara could respond, the ship's intercom crackled. All crew to the bridge. Immediately. They rushed to the bridge, where Rivera stood staring at the main view screen with an expression of shock. What is it? Yuki asked. Rivera pointed at the screen. That. Floating in the darkness of space before them was a station. But not like any station Zara had ever seen. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and built in a style that was clearly not human. Organic curves instead of straight lines. Materials that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. And most impossibly, parts of it appeared to be transparent, showing stars visible through what should have been solid walls. What is that? Zara breathed. No idea, Rivera said. But we're receiving a signal. Audio only. In English. She nodded to the communications officer who played the message. A voice, calm, androgynous, somehow ancient and young at the same time, filled the bridge. Welcome, travelers. We have been waiting for you. Please dock at Bay 17. You have arrived precisely when you were needed. The crew exchanged glances. Should we trust this? Asked Marcus, their engineer. Strange alien station, mysterious message? This could be a trap. Could be, Rivera agreed. But we're lost with no way home. And whoever built that station knows we're here. If they wanted to harm us, they could probably do it whether we dock or not. He looked at Zara. Navigator? Any thoughts? Zara studied the station, that feeling in her gut that she'd learned to recognize over years of accidental navigation. The feeling that always came when her strange non-skill was pulling them toward something. I think we should go, she said quietly. I don't know why. But I think this is where we were supposed to end up. I think I didn't get us lost. I think I got us exactly where we needed to be. Rivera considered this for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right. We dock. But everyone stays alert. Marcus, keep the engines hot in case we need to leave quickly. Yuki, prepare the medical bay in case we encounter hostile life forms. Zero, keep doing whatever it is you do. They approached the massive station slowly. Bay 17 opened like a flower blooming, revealing a docking port that, impossibly, seemed sized exactly for their ship. As they docked and the airlock sealed, Zara felt something shift inside her. All her life, she'd seen her inability to navigate properly as a failure. But what if Yuki was right? What if she wasn't failing at navigation? What if she was succeeding at something else entirely? What if getting lost was her actual skill, and all these years she'd been judging herself by the wrong standard? The airlock finished its cycle. The interior door opened. And beyond it, waiting in a corridor that seemed to be made of starlight crystallized into solid form, stood a figure. It was humanoid but clearly not human. Tall, slender, with skin that shimmered like the surface of a soap bubble reflecting colors that shouldn't exist. Its eyes were like looking into deep space itself, full of stars and darkness. Welcome, Navigator Chin, the being said, its voice the same one from the message. We have been waiting a very long time for a human to develop your particular gift. The gift of finding what's needed instead of what's wanted. The gift of navigating not by maps, but by the universe's deeper currents. It gestured down the corridor. Please. Come. We have much to discuss. Including how to save your colonists on Tau Ceti. Because you see, you didn't fail your mission. You did exactly what needed to be done. You found us. And we can help you, if you're willing to understand what you actually are. Zara looked back at Rivera, who nodded. Together, the crew of the Wandering Heart followed the strange being into the alien station. And for the first time in her life, Zara felt a flutter of hope that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't broken after all. Maybe she'd just been trying to be the wrong kind of navigator. Maybe it was time to discover what the right kind looked like. Narrator. And so Zara Chin, the navigator who always got lost, found herself in the strangest place yet. Not lost, but exactly where she was meant to be. What secrets would the ancient station hold? How would they save the colonist? And what would Zara learn about her mysterious gift? The answers await in the next part of our journey through the stars. But for now, rest, dear listener. Let yourself drift like a ship between stars, trusting that even when you feel lost, you might be exactly where you need to be. Sleep well, space traveler. The stars are watching over you tonight. The station of lost things. The corridor inside the alien station seemed to go on forever, though Zara's sense of distance had become unreliable. The walls were made of something that looked like crystallized starlight. Translucent, shimmering, showing glimpses of the cosmos beyond. Each step they took made no sound, as if they were walking through a dream. The being who had greeted them moved with fluid grace, its form occasionally becoming slightly transparent, revealing what looked like constellations moving beneath its skin. I have many names in many languages, it said without turning around, somehow knowing they wanted to ask. But you may call me Meridian. I am what you might call a curator. A keeper of paths. A guide for those who wander. Captain Rivera, ever practical, asked the question on everyone's mind. What is this place? And how did you know Navigator Chen's name? Meridian paused, turning to face them with those impossible eyes full of stars. This is the Nexus. the still point around which all paths turn. As for your navigator, we know all who find their way here. That is the nature of the nexus. Only those who are lost in the right way can discover it. They entered a vast chamber that made Zara's breath catch in her throat. It was circular, maybe a mile across, with a ceiling that showed not solid material but what appeared to be actual space. Galaxies wheeling slowly overhead, nebulae blooming and fading like flowers in time-lapse. Around the edges of the chamber were alcoves, thousands of them, each containing objects. Zara could see pieces of spacecraft, crystalline structures, organic-looking sculptures, devices whose purpose she couldn't begin to guess. And between the alcoves, beings moved, not many, perhaps a dozen, but each as alien and unique as Meridian. Some were corporeal, others seemed to be pure energy barely contained in recognizable form. The nexus exists outside normal space, Meridian explained, leading them toward the center of the chamber. A pocket dimension, you might say, though that's not quite accurate. It's more like a pause. A breath between moments. Time moves differently here. Space bends strangely. And those who find this place are always those who were meant to. Dr. Tanaka stepped closer to one of the alcoves, examining what looked like a ship's navigation computer, ancient and covered in symbols she didn't recognize. What are all these things? Lost things, Meridian said simply. Objects that slipped between the cracks of reality. Ships that vanished. Artifacts that were forgotten. Technologies that were abandoned. Everything that gets truly lost eventually finds its way here. Including. It looked directly at Zara. People. I'm not lost, Zara said automatically, then caught herself. Well, I am. But not in the way you mean. Aren't you? Meridian tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human despite the being's alien nature. You've spent 14 years believing you were failing at navigation when in truth you were succeeding at something far more rare. You were finding the paths between. It gestured, and suddenly the air in front of them filled with light, threads of it like a three-dimensional spider web connecting points in space. Zara recognized some of the nodes. Earth, Alpha Centauri, Kepler 442, other places she tried to navigate to. But the threads didn't connect them in straight lines. Instead, they wove in curves and spirals, touching places she'd accidentally discovered. This is how normal navigators see space, Meridian said, and the threads straightened, becoming direct lines between destinations. Point A to point B, efficient, predictable, useful for commerce and travel. The image shifted, the threads becoming curved and complex again. But this is how space actually is. Full of hidden currents, probability streams, need lines that connect not places but purposes. Normal navigators cannot see these paths because they're looking at where they want to go. You navigator-chin have always navigated by where you're needed. That's why you never arrive at your intended destination. You're following different paths. Zara stared at the complex web of light. But I don't know how I do it. I'm not trying to follow these need lines or whatever they are. I'm just bad at normal navigation. Are you? Or have you simply been using instruments designed for a different kind of navigation? Meridian moved through the holographic display, and the threads of light parted around it like water. Tell me, when you calculate jump coordinates, what do you think about? The destination. The star charts. The mathematics of the jump. And what do you feel? Zara paused. Feel. When you input the coordinates. In that moment before you initiate the jump. What do you feel? Zara thought back to countless jumps, countless navigations. I don't know. A pull sometimes. Like something tugging at my attention. I always ignored it because it felt like distraction from the calculations. That pull, Meridian said softly, is you sensing the need lines. The paths between what is and what's required. You've been fighting your actual gift for 14 years, trying to navigate like everyone else while your deeper sense was pulling you toward where you were truly needed. Captain Rivera stepped forward. This is fascinating, really. But we have an urgent problem. There are colonists dying on Tau Ceti, and we're 2,000 light-years off course with medical supplies they need. Can your nexus help us with that, or are we wasting time with philosophy lessons? Meridian's expression, if it could be called that, seemed amused. Captain Rivera. Always practical. This is precisely why your crew works well together. But you see, you're not 2,000 light-years off course. You're exactly where you need to be. Because the nexus can send you to Tau Ceti instantly. We exist outside normal space, remember? From here, all destinations are equally close. Hope flared in Zara's chest. You can send us there? Just like that. But first you must understand why you came here. Because it wasn't random, Navigator Chin. Nothing that arrives at the Nexus is random. Meridian gestured to another part of the chamber, where a holographic display showed a star system Zara didn't recognize. 67 years ago, a research vessel went missing. The Prometheus. It vanished near the Horsehead Nebula, carrying a crew of 23 scientists and the only existing samples of a bacteria that could synthesize certain rare elements. Those samples would have revolutionized colonial medicine. Made it possible to treat dozens of conditions including... It paused meaningfully. Martian fever. Dr. Tanaka gasped. The Prometheus. I've read about it. It was the greatest loss in early space exploration. They searched for years but never found any trace. They couldn't find it because it didn't crash. It got lost. Truly lost. Slipped between the spaces, ended up in a region of warped spacetime it couldn't escape from. The crew survived for 3 months before their resources ran out. But the samples remained intact, preserved in stasis chambers that were still functioning when the ship finally drifted here, to the Nexus 7 years ago. Meridian led them to an alcove where a stasis chamber sat, frost covering its surface, red lights still blinking after nearly 70 years. The cure for Martian fever has been here the entire time, waiting. But we cannot leave the Nexus. We can only guide, only preserve, only wait for those who are lost in the right way to find us. We've been waiting for a navigator who could sense the need lines. Waiting for someone who would be carrying medical supplies toward a plague outbreak, who would get lost at exactly the right moment, who would find their way here just when they were most needed. Meridian looked at Zara. We've been waiting for you. The chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of the stasis chamber. Zara felt tears on her face, though she hadn't realized she was crying. All those years, she whispered. All those times I thought I was failing, I was really training? Learning to sense these paths. Yes. Though you didn't know it. The universe has been teaching you, Navigator Chin. Preparing you. Every accidental discovery was a lesson. Every wrong destination was practice. And now you're ready for what you actually are. Meridian's voice was gentle. You're not a navigator of space. You're a navigator of need. A finder of lost things. A follower of paths that others cannot see. Marcus, the engineer, cleared his throat. So we take the samples, you send us to Tau Ceti, everyone's saved, happy ending? Not quite so simple, Meridian said. The samples must be revived carefully, cultured properly, administered correctly. Dr. Tanaka, you'll need to work with our medical archives to understand the process. It will take several hours. But we have time, Rivera said slowly, understanding. Because time works differently here. We could spend a week in this station and emerge just moments after we left normal space. Precisely. You have all the time you need. Meridian gestured to other beings in the chamber. My colleagues will help you. We have extensive archives. Knowledge from 1,000 civilizations, medical techniques beyond your current understanding. Dr. Tanaka, if you're willing to learn, you can save not just the colonists on Tau Ceti, but potentially thousands more throughout human space. The bacterial samples can be replicated, cultivated, distributed. Yuki looked like someone had offered her the universe. I'm willing. Absolutely willing. Good. Come then. A being that looked like liquid mercury formed into a humanoid shape approached them. I am Catalyst. I will show you our medical archives. As Yuki left with Catalyst, barely containing her excitement, Meridian turned back to Zara. And you, Navigator, must learn what you actually are. Not everyone who gets lost can find the Nexus. It requires a specific gift, a certain way of perceiving reality. There are perhaps 3 or 4 humans in all of space who have it. You're one of them. But I don't understand how it works. I just get lost. Then let me teach you to get lost deliberately. To navigate the need lines consciously instead of accidentally. To become what you were always meant to be, a wayfinder. Over the next several hours, though time meant little in the Nexus, Meridian taught Zara to sense what she'd been unconsciously feeling for years. The pull of the need lines. The sensation of purpose drawing her attention. The way space bent around necessity. They stood in a training chamber that could simulate any region of space. and Meridian showed her how to feel the difference between a direct path and a need path. Normal navigation says, "Go from here to there," Meridian explained, showing her a straight line between 2 points. Need navigation says, "Go from here to where you're required." The destination might be the same, but the path is entirely different. Feel the difference. Zara closed her eyes, reaching out with senses she'd never known she had. And there it was. The pull. Not toward destinations but toward purpose. Toward places where something was wrong, where something was needed, where her arrival would matter. "I feel it," she breathed. "It's been there all along. I just thought it was distraction. Anxiety. My own failure to focus. It was your gift trying to guide you while you fought against it. Now don't fight. Follow." They practiced for what felt like days, though Meridian assured her it had only been hours. Zara learned to distinguish between different types of need lines. Urgent ones that pulsed with intensity, slower ones that hummed with patient necessity, complex ones that wove together multiple purposes. "You're learning quickly," Meridian said with what might have been pride. "But understand, being a wayfinder isn't just about finding what's needed. It's about accepting that you'll rarely go where you intend. Your life will be one of constant unexpected detours. You must be comfortable with that or it will drive you mad." "I've been living with it for 14 years, Zara said. "The difference is now I know it's not failure. Now I understand what I'm actually doing." "Good. Because the universe needs wayfinders. There are so many lost things, Navigator-chan. So many people and objects and opportunities that slip through the cracks, that end up in wrong places or forgotten corners. Normal navigators cannot find them because they only look where they intend to go. But you can find what's lost. What's needed. What's waiting to be discovered." Meanwhile, elsewhere in the Nexus, Dr. Tanaka was experiencing her own revelation. The medical archives contained knowledge that made her head spin. Treatments for conditions humans hadn't even classified yet, techniques for healing that seemed like magic but were based in biology so advanced it might as well be. Catalyst showed her how to revive the bacterial samples, how to culture them, how to create the derivative treatments that would cure Martian fever and dozens of other colonial diseases. This knowledge, Yuki said, overwhelmed. This could change everything. Save thousands of lives. Yes, Catalyst agreed, its liquid mercury form rippling. But you must be careful how you introduce it. Your civilization is not ready for all of this. Too much, too fast, and it will be misused. Take what you need now. Learn what you can absorb. Return here when you're ready for more. Return? We can come back. Any wayfinder can find the Nexus if they're looking for it. And your Navigator-chan is a wayfinder now. She will be able to bring you back when the time is right. When you're ready for the next piece of knowledge. Hours passed in the Nexus, though only minutes were passing in normal space. The crew explored, learned, marveled at the impossible station full of lost things waiting to be found. Finally, Meridian gathered them together again in the central chamber. Dr. Tanaka carried carefully preserved bacterial samples and a data drive full of medical knowledge. Zara carried something less tangible but equally valuable. Understanding of what she actually was. "You're ready," Meridian said. "The colonists on Tau Ceti need you. Dr. Tanaka has what's required to save them. And Navigator-chan can take you there now, not by accident but by purpose." Rivera looked at her navigator. "Zara? Can you do it?" Zara closed her eyes, reaching out with her new old sense. She felt the need lines stretching across space like strings on a cosmic instrument. And there, bright and urgent and clear, was Tau Ceti. People suffering. People dying. People needing exactly what the wandering heart now carried. "I can," Zara said, opening her eyes. "I can feel the path. It's not the direct route but it's the right one. The needed one." "How long will it take?" Rivera asked. "In normal space? 3 hours. But," Zara smiled, "we'll arrive exactly when we're needed most. That's how need navigation works. Time bends around necessity." They returned to their ship, the Wandering Heart, docked in Bay 17. As they prepared to leave, Meridian appeared one last time. "You're always welcome here, Navigator-chan. And you will return, not by accident but when you're needed. When there's something lost that only you can find. The Nexus will call to you and you'll know how to answer." "Thank you," Zara said. "For teaching me. For showing me I wasn't broken." "You were never broken. Only undiscovered. Meridian's form began to fade, becoming translucent. Safe travels, Wayfinder. May you always find what's needed. The wandering heart undocked, and Zara sat at her navigation station with new understanding. She input the coordinates for Tau Ceti, but this time she didn't fight the pull she felt. She followed it. Let it guide her hands, her calculations, her sense of space. The jump felt different this time. Smoother. More purposeful. Like the universe was working with her instead of against her. They emerged from hyperspace exactly where Zara had intended. In orbit around Tau Ceti, with the colony's desperate distress signals filling their communications array. Time check, Rivera said. 3 hours since we docked at the Nexus, Marcus confirmed. But that's impossible. We spent at least 2 days there. Time is flexible around necessity, Zara said quietly. We arrived exactly when we needed to. The colony's medical officer came on screen, her face haggard with exhaustion. Wandering heart, is that you? We'd given up hope. We thought you'd been lost. We sent for another ship, but they're still 2 days out. We have people dying right now. We have what you need, Dr. Tanaka interrupted gently. Not just the supplies you ordered, but something better. A cure. A real cure. We'll beam down immediately. After they saved the colonists. After Dr. Tanaka administered the revived bacterial treatments and watched Martian fever retreat from patient after patient. After the grateful celebration and the exhausted relief, Captain Rivera gathered her crew in the ship's common room. So, she said, our navigator can now find things that are lost. Our doctor has knowledge from an alien archive that could revolutionize colonial medicine. And we've discovered a station outside normal space that exists to collect lost things and wait for people like us to find it. She looked at each of them. I think we're not a cargo hauler anymore. What are we then? Marcus asked. Zara smiled, finally understanding. We're finders. We find what's lost. What's needed. What's waiting to be discovered. We follow the need lines wherever they lead. Even if that means never getting where we intend to go? Rivera asked. Especially then. Because where we intend to go is rarely where we're actually needed. Rivera nodded slowly. All right then. New mission parameters. We take contracts, but we don't fight Zara's navigation anymore. We go where we end up and we see what needs finding there. Agreed. One by one the crew agreed. They were becoming something new. Not just a ship, but a vessel for finding lost things. For following the paths between what is and what's needed. Narrator. And so the wandering heart found its true purpose. Not hauling cargo, but finding what's lost. Zara Chin had discovered she wasn't a failed navigator, but a wayfinder. Dr. Tanaka carried knowledge that would save thousands. And the crew had learned that getting lost sometimes means being exactly where you're meant to be. But this was only the beginning. There were so many lost things waiting to be found. So many needs pulling at the edges of space. So many adventures ahead for a ship that had learned to embrace being lost. Rest now, dear listener. Let yourself drift like the wandering heart, trusting that even detours have purpose. Even getting lost can mean being found. Sleep well, space traveler. The need lines are guiding you toward exactly where you need to be. The ship that remembered. 3 weeks after leaving Tau Ceti, the wandering heart drifted through the quiet darkness between stars, and Zara felt the pull. It had become familiar now, this sensation, like a gentle hand tugging at her attention, drawing her gaze toward a specific point in space. The need lines, Meridian had called them. Paths that connected not places but purposes, weaving an invisible web across the cosmos. Captain, Zara said quietly, not taking her eyes off the navigation display. I'm feeling something. Captain Rivera didn't sigh or look exasperated anymore when Zara said this. Over the past 3 weeks they'd learned to trust the pulls. One had led them to a damaged research station whose distress beacon had failed. They'd saved 6 scientists from slow suffocation. Another had brought them to a cargo pod that had been jettisoned from a pirate attack, containing medicine that they'd delivered to a mining colony suffering from an outbreak. The crew of the Wandering Heart was learning their new role as finders of lost things. What kind of pull? Rivera asked, setting down her coffee. Different from the others. Slower. Quieter. But... Zara searched for the right words. Sadder somehow. Like something's been waiting a very long time. Rivera studied her navigator's face. In 3 weeks Zara had changed. The constant anxiety that had shadowed her eyes for years had lifted. She moved with more confidence, spoke with more certainty. Understanding her gift had healed something in her. How far? Rivera asked. 4 days. Maybe 5. It's not urgent. I'm not feeling that emergency pulse like with the research station. But it's persistent. Patient. It wants to be found. All right. Marcus, how are our supplies? Their engineer looked up from the maintenance panel he was working on. Good for 3 weeks at current consumption. We can spare 5 days for a detour that might not pay anything. Then we follow it. Zara, plot the course. Let's see what's waiting to be found. The journey took 4.5 days through empty space, following a pull that only Zara could feel. They passed through regions where stars were sparse, where the darkness between lights seemed to stretch forever. These were the quiet places, the forgotten corners of the galaxy where ships rarely traveled because there was nothing of value, nothing worth the fuel to reach. But something was here. Zara could feel it growing stronger with each jump, each hour of travel. Something patient. Something lonely. Something that had been lost for a very, very long time. On the 5th day they found it. It appeared on their sensors gradually, first as an anomaly in the emptiness, then as a solid object, then finally as a ship. An old ship, drifting dead in the void, its hull scarred by micrometeorite impacts and radiation exposure. Getting readings, Marcus said, his fingers flying over the sensor controls. No power. No life support. No active systems at all. It's been dead for... Wait, this can't be right. What? Rivera leaned over his shoulder. According to the decay patterns of the hull materials and the density of impact scarring, this ship has been drifting here for approximately 230 years. Yuki looked up from her medical station. 230 years? That would make it from the early colony period. Before we had reliable navigation. Before most of the settled worlds even existed. Zara was already accessing the historical database, searching for missing ships from that era. There were dozens, hundreds even. In the early days of human expansion into space, ships disappeared regularly. Navigation was primitive, communication was unreliable, and the vastness of space swallowed vessels whole. Can we identify it? Rivera asked. Marcus enhanced the sensor image, focusing on the hull. There, barely visible under 2 centuries of cosmic weathering, were faded letters. As memories keep. Zara's search came back with a match. The memories keep. Left Earth orbit 234 years ago, carrying colonists to what they hoped would be a habitable planet in the Epsilon Eridani system. 173 passengers. Never arrived. Never heard from again. Listed as lost with all hands. A heavy silence filled the bridge. 173 people. Families. Children. All dead for over 2 centuries, drifting in the darkness, forgotten by everyone except historical databases. There might be remains, Yuki said quietly. Families on Earth might want closure. To know what happened to their ancestors. Rivera nodded slowly. We board. We document. We see if there's anything worth salvaging or anyone worth honoring. Suit up, everyone. Standard EVA protocols. An hour later, Zara floated in the airlock of the Memories Keep, her suit lights cutting through 200 years of darkness. The ship's interior was exactly as she'd imagined. Frozen, silent, a tomb drifting through space. But something felt wrong. Or rather, something felt less wrong than it should. The ship was old, damaged, dead, but it didn't feel malevolent or frightening. It felt... waiting. The same patient, sad feeling she'd sensed from days away. Zara, you're with me. Rivera's voice crackled through the suit comm. Marcus, you check engineering. You can see if there's a medical bay. Let's find out what happened here. They moved through corridors that had seen no light in centuries. Frost covered everything. The moisture from the ship's atmosphere had frozen when life support failed, creating a crystal palace of ice and death. Their helmet lights reflected off 1,000 frozen surfaces, making the darkness glitter. The crew quarters were hardest to see. Frozen forms in bunks, families huddled together, children clutching toys that would never be played with again. Yuki documented it all with professional detachment, but Zara could hear the catch in her friend's breathing. They didn't suffer long, Yuki said, examining one of the bodies. When life support failed, the temperature would have dropped quickly. They likely fell asleep and didn't wake up. It's as peaceful as death in space can be. They found the captain's log in what had been the bridge. A physical book maintained by hand, frozen solid but potentially readable if thawed carefully. Marcus retrieved it with gentle hands, placing it in a preservation case. "I'll check engineering," Marcus said, his voice subdued. "See what failed. Whether it was mechanical or something else." Zara stayed on the bridge with Rivera, studying the frozen instruments, the dead screens, the controls that hadn't been touched in 200 years. And that's when she felt it again, stronger now, more focused. The pull that had brought them here. But it wasn't coming from the ship's structure. It was coming from below. "Captain," Zara said slowly, "there's something in the cargo hold. That's what's calling to me. Whatever we came here to find, it's down there." They made their way to the cargo levels, through corridors that grew narrower, more damaged. Several sections had been breached by impacts, open to space, the rooms beyond destroyed. But one cargo hold remained sealed, its heavy door still intact. Marcus joined them, his face grim inside his helmet. "Main reactor failed. Looks like a manufacturing defect. A seal that was supposed to last centuries gave out after just 2 years. They would have tried to repair it, but they didn't have the parts. Life support lasted another week on backup power, then." He gestured at the frozen tomb around them. "Then this. A manufacturing defect," Rivera said bitterly. 173 people died because someone on Earth cut corners on a reactor seal. They opened the cargo hold door, still functional despite centuries of cold, and found it full of crates. Supplies for the colony that never was. Tools, seeds, medical equipment, everything needed to start a new world. But in the center, secured more carefully than anything else, was a smaller container. Climate-controlled, reinforced, marked with symbols that indicated precious cargo. And from it, Zara felt the pull strongest. Marcus checked the container status panel. Miraculously, still functioning on an independent power source. It's active. Temperature maintained. Integrity intact. Whatever's in here has been preserved perfectly. "Open it," Rivera said. Inside, nestled in protective foam, were data storage units. Dozens of them. Old-style solid-state drives, built to last centuries. Each was labeled with careful handwriting: Earth Memories, Archive 1. Earth Memories, Archive 2. And so on. "What is this?" Marcus breathed. Zara picked up a data chip, turning it over in her gloved hand. She'd felt the pull for days, crossed empty space to find it. But what was it? Rivera found a manifest in the container, frozen but readable. She read aloud: Memory Archive Project. Sponsored by the Earth Cultural Preservation Society. Purpose: to ensure that when humanity spreads to the stars, we don't forget where we came from. Contents: recordings of Earth, nature sounds, city sounds, human voices. Interviews with thousands of people from every culture, speaking their languages, telling their stories. Videos of Earth's landscapes, oceans, forests, deserts. Music from every tradition. Art from every era. A complete snapshot of Earth as it was in the year 2253, to be delivered to the new colonies so future generations would remember home. She looked up, her voice thick with emotion. This ship wasn't just carrying colonists. It was carrying Earth's memory. And when it was lost, all of this, 200 years of human voices, stories, songs, was lost with it. Preserved perfectly in this cargo hold, waiting to be found. Yuki's voice came over the comm from the medical bay. "Captain, you need to see this. I found something." They made their way to the medical bay where Yuki stood before a wall covered in handwritten notes, preserved under a sheet of ice. "The ship's doctor kept a journal," Yuki explained. "When they realized they were going to die, she documented everything. The reactor failure, the failed repair attempts, the gradual loss of hope. But look at this entry from the last day life support was functioning." She directed her helmet light to a specific passage. Rivera read it aloud. "We know we will not survive. The cold is already unbearable and we have perhaps hours left. But Captain Morrison has asked me to record this final message. We do not regret the journey. We knew the risks. What we regret is the loss of the memory archive. Those recordings were supposed to help our children remember Earth, remember where humanity came from. Now they will drift here unheard, while Earth forgets we ever tried to preserve its voice. If anyone ever finds this ship, please, save the archive. Make sure Earth's memory survives even if we do not. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of breathing in helmets. They spent their last hours worried about the archive, Marcus said quietly. About preserving memory. Not about their own deaths, but about making sure future generations wouldn't forget. Zara felt tears freezing on her cheeks inside her helmet. This was why she'd been called here. Not for salvage, not for closure, but for this, to find what had been lost, what had been waiting patiently for 200 years for someone who could sense need lines to discover it. We take the archive, Rivera said, her voice firm. All of it. We bring it to Earth. We make sure their last wish is honored. They worked for hours, carefully transferring the data storage units to the wandering heart. Each one handled with reverence, knowing it contained voices that had been silent for centuries, stories that had been waiting to be heard. When they'd secured the archive in their own cargo hold, Rivera gathered the crew in the Memories Keep's bridge one final time. We need to report this find, she said. Earth will want to send a proper recovery team, to bring the colonists' remains home to honor them properly. But first. She looked around at the frozen ship, the tomb that had preserved Earth's memory. First we say goodbye. They stood in silence for a long moment, each lost in their own thoughts about the people who had died here, about the dreams that had ended in the cold dark, about the precious cargo that had waited so patiently to be found. Finally Zara spoke, her voice soft. Thank you for keeping the memories safe. For waiting. For trusting that someone would find you. We'll make sure the archive reaches Earth. We'll make sure people hear the voices you protected. You didn't fail. The memory survives. They returned to the wandering heart and set course for Earth. Not following Zara's pull this time but following purpose and promise. The journey would take 3 weeks and they spent it listening to the archive. The recordings were extraordinary. Thousands of hours of Earth as it had been 2 centuries ago. Ocean waves crashing on beaches. Wind through forests. City sounds. Traffic voices, music. Interviews with people from every continent, speaking hundreds of languages, telling stories about their lives, their hopes, their love for the planet they might never see again. One evening the crew gathered in the common room to listen together. An elderly woman's voice filled the speakers, speaking in accented English. My name is Maria Gonzalez. I am 73 years old and I have lived my entire life in the Amazon rainforest. I am recording this for my great-great-grandchildren who I will never meet, who will be born on worlds I cannot imagine. I want them to know what Earth sounded like. What the rain sounded like falling on leaves. What the birds sounded like in the morning. What the river sounded like rushing over stones. I want them to know that Earth was beautiful. That we loved it. That when they look at the stars and wonder about the planet their ancestors came from, they can close their eyes and hear this, and know they came from somewhere extraordinary. The recording shifted to jungle sounds. Rain, birds, rushing water. The crew sat in silence, listening to Earth from 200 years in the past, perfectly preserved, waiting to be shared. We're taking this to the archives at the Smithsonian, Rivera said. Every cultural institution on Earth will want copies. Schools, libraries, museums. This isn't just historical data. This is Earth's voice. Earth's memory. The colonists didn't make it to their new world, Yuki said. But their mission, preserving Earth's memory, that mission succeeded. 200 years late, but it succeeded. 3 weeks later, the wandering heart entered Earth's orbital space. They'd sent ahead their report, and the response had been overwhelming. The discovery of the Memories Keep and its precious cargo had made headlines across human space. The archive was being called the greatest archaeological find of the century. But for Zara, standing on the bridge as Earth grew larger in the view screen, the blue and green planet where humanity had been born, the importance wasn't in the headlines or the historical significance. It was in honoring the last wish of people who died 200 years ago. In finding what had been lost. In following a pull across empty space to discover something that had been waiting patiently to be found. This was what being a wayfinder meant. Not just navigation but purpose. Not just finding destinations but finding what needed to be found. As they descended toward Earth, toward the transfer of the archive to preservation specialists who would spend years cataloging and sharing its contents, Zara felt the familiar pull beginning again. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. Something else needed finding. Somewhere in the vastness of space, something was lost and waiting. But that was for tomorrow. Tonight they had delivered Earth's memory safely home. They had honored the colonists of the Memory's Keep. They had found what was lost and given it back to the living. Narrator. And so the wandering heart completed its second finding, not treasure or survivors but something more precious. Memory itself. The voices of Earth, preserved by colonists who died protecting them, finally heard again after 200 years of silence. Zara Chin, the wayfinder, had followed the need lines to something that couldn't have been found any other way. The patient, sad pull had led her to people who'd been waiting centuries to complete their mission. But there were other pulls, other lost things waiting in the darkness. And the wandering heart would find them one by one because that was its purpose now. That was what it was meant to do. Rest now, dear listener. Let yourself drift among the stars, knowing that nothing is truly lost. Everything is waiting somewhere, patient and hopeful, to be found by those who know how to sense the need lines. Sleep well, space traveler. Tomorrow brings new discoveries, but tonight simply rest among the memories of home. The signal from nowhere. 2 months after delivering the memory archive to Earth, the wandering heart floated in orbit around a small trading station called Haven's Rest, resupplying and taking on new cargo contracts. The crew had become minor celebrities after the discovery of the Memory's Keep. Documentary producers wanted interviews, historians wanted consultations, and suddenly everyone in human space knew about the ship that found lost things. Zara sat in the station's observation deck, watching ships come and go, feeling restless. Since returning from Earth, she'd felt several small pulls. A lost cargo pod here, a stranded shuttle there, but nothing like the deep, purposeful pull that had led them to the Nexus or the Memory's Keep. You look bored, Yuki said, settling into the seat beside her with 2 cups of tea. Not bored. Just waiting. I can feel that there's something out there, something big, but it's not ready yet. Or we're not ready for it. I'm not sure which. The universe works on its own schedule, apparently. Yuki sipped her tea. Have you thought about what Captain Rivera asked? About whether we should accept the contract for the supply run to Proxima Station. It's a good contract. Pays well. Straightforward route. Zara smiled slightly. Which means I'll probably get us lost and we'll end up somewhere completely different. And you're okay with that now? I'm okay with it. Took me long enough, didn't it? Zara looked at her friend. How are you doing with the archive knowledge? I know you've been studying the medical files from the Nexus. Yuki's expression grew thoughtful. It's overwhelming. Every time I think I understand something, I realize how much more there is to learn. Catalyst was right, humanity isn't ready for all of it. But I'm making notes, slowly integrating what I can into my practice. Already saved 2 lives last month using techniques I learned from those archives. 2 lives that would have been lost otherwise. 2 lives that might have been saved anyway, eventually by someone else. Yuki set down her tea. That's what I keep reminding myself. We're not saving the universe single-handedly. We're just finding things a little earlier than they would have been found otherwise. Helping things along. Before Zara could respond, her calm chirped. Rivera's voice urgent. Zara, Yuki, back to the ship. No. We've got something strange. They found the bridge of the wandering heart in controlled chaos. Marcus was at the sensor station, Rivera was pacing, and their communications officer, Chinwei, was staring at his screen with an expression of confusion. What's happening? Zara asked. We're receiving a signal, Chinwei said. But it shouldn't be possible. He played the audio. It was faint, crackling with static, but unmistakably a distress call. Anyone? Help, Florence, please. That doesn't sound impossible, Yuki said. Wait for it, Marcus said, pulling up the sensor data. The signal is coming from coordinates that are inside a stellar nursery. The Taurus dark cloud specifically. A region of space so dense with gas and dust that sensors can't penetrate it, ships can't navigate through it, and no one in their right mind would try to go there. Zara leaned over the display. The Taurus dark cloud was a massive cloud of interstellar gas and dust where new stars were being born. Beautiful from a distance but deadly up close. The radiation, the density, the magnetic interference. It was completely inhospitable to any kind of technology. Someone's in there? Zara asked. That's impossible, Marcus insisted. Even if a ship somehow got pulled in, which shouldn't happen, any electronic equipment would be fried by radiation within hours. This signal would require functioning transmitters, power systems, life support. none of which could survive in that environment. Play it again, Rivera ordered. Chinwei replayed the signal, and this time Zara listened more carefully. The voice was human, definitely, but there was something odd about it. The cadence, though, sounded old. Not an old person, but an old recording, like the voices from the memory archive. Can you clean it up? Rivera asked. Get more detail? Chinwei worked his console for several minutes, filtering out static, enhancing the signal. When he played it again, they could hear more. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the survey ship Pathfinder. Trapped in the dark cloud, coordinates follow. Been here for, please, if anyone receives this, help us. Pathfinder, Marcus breathed, already searching the historical database. Oh no. Oh, that's not possible. He pulled up the record. Pathfinder. Survey vessel that disappeared 83 years ago while exploring the outer rim of the Taurus region. Crew of 9. Never heard from again. Declared lost with all hands after 5 years of searching. 83 years, Yuki said slowly. No ship could maintain life support for 83 years. No crew could survive that long. And yet we're receiving their distress call, Rivera said. He looked at Zara. Are you feeling a pull? Zara closed her eyes, reaching out with her wayfinder sense. And there it was, not the gentle tug she'd felt toward the memory's keep, but something stronger, more urgent. A pull that felt almost desperate. Something that had been waiting far, far too long. Yes, Zara whispered. It's strong. Whatever's in there, it's been waiting. Waiting for someone who could sense it. Waiting for someone who could navigate the impossible. Rivera was silent for a long moment, studying the swirling false-color image of the Taurus dark cloud on the display. It looked beautiful, purples and blues and reds, stellar nurseries glowing with the light of infant stars. It also looked deadly. Even for you, Rivera said carefully, navigating through that cloud might be beyond what's possible. The gas is so dense that regular space travel doesn't work. The magnetic fields would scramble any navigation equipment. You'd be flying blind in a soup of radiation and debris. I wouldn't be flying blind, Zara said, her eyes still closed, feeling the pull. I'd be following the need line. It's clear, Captain. Clearer than anything I've felt except the Nexus. Whatever's in there, it needs us. Desperately. Marcus pulled up more data. The signal is coming from approximately 30 light days into the cloud. At normal speeds, accounting for having to navigate through the density, it would take us weeks. Maybe months. And that's assuming we don't get torn apart by radiation or collide with something we can't see. What about hyperspace? Yuki asked. Can't jump inside the cloud. The density would collapse the hyperspace bubble. We'd have to fly there conventionally. Marcus shook his head. Captain, this is suicide. We have no idea what's actually in there, no way to navigate, no guarantee we could even survive the trip. For all we know, that signal is 83 years old, just now propagating out of the cloud. It's not, Zara said, opening her eyes. The pull is present tense. Whatever's calling to me, it's there now. Alive now. Waiting now. Rivera looked at each of her crew members in turn. This isn't a cargo run. There's no contract, no payment. Just a distress signal from the impossible. If we do this, we're volunteering to fly into one of the most dangerous regions of space on the chance that we can save whatever's in there. I need each of you to tell me, are you willing? Chinwei spoke first. I'm in. We're finders of lost things. That ship has been lost for 83 years. If there's even a chance. I'm in, Yuki said. If there are survivors, they'll need medical attention. 83 years in that environment. I can't even imagine what condition they'd be in. Marcus was quiet longer, running calculations on his console. Finally, the ship can handle it. Maybe. If we reinforce the shielding, reroute power to structural integrity, and accept that we're going to take damage. I can't promise we'll make it through. But I can make us as ready as possible. So, I'm in. All eyes turned to Zara. I'm in, she said simply. This is what I am. A wayfinder. And something in there needs finding. Rivera nodded slowly. Then we prepare. Marcus, start modifications. Chinwei, keep monitoring that signal, see if you can extract any more information. Yuki, prep the medical bay for potential trauma cases. Zara. She paused. Zara, study those need lines. We're going to be trusting your sense more than any instruments we have. The modifications took 3 days. Marcus reinforced the hull with every spare plate they could buy or borrow from Haven's Rest. He rerouted the shield generators to provide maximum protection against radiation. He programmed the computer with every scrap of data about the Taurus dark cloud he could find, though he admitted it was mostly useless. Sensors will be nearly blind in there, he explained to the crew during their final briefing. The particle density scatters any scanning beam. Visual will be limited to maybe 100 meters. We'll be relying on Zara's navigation almost entirely. No pressure, Zara murmured, studying the needline that stretched before them like an invisible thread into impossible darkness. They departed Haven's Rest on the 4th day, heading toward the outer edge of the Taurus dark cloud. From a distance, it looked like a vast wall of colored smoke stretching across space, beautiful and serene. As they approached, the beauty became ominous. The cloud grew and grew until it filled the entire forward viewport. Not a wall anymore, but an ocean of gas and dust, churning with magnetic storms and lit from within by the birth fires of new stars. Last chance to turn back, Rivera said quietly. The signal's getting stronger, Chinwei reported. Still saying the same thing. Still asking for help. Zara stood at the navigation console, her hands resting on the controls, feeling the pull stronger than ever. She could sense the path now, not a straight line, but a winding route through the chaos, following currents of necessity that she couldn't see but could feel. I can guide us through, she said. I don't know how I know, but I know. Then take us in, navigator. Nice and slow. The wandering heart entered the Taurus dark cloud like a ship entering fog. Except the fog was light years deep and filled with enough radiation to kill an unshielded human in seconds. Immediately the sensors began screaming warnings. Radiation levels critical. Magnetic interference severe. Visual range limited. The main view screen showed nothing but swirling colors. Purples and reds and blues, beautiful and deadly. Shields holding, Marcus reported, his voice tense. But they're being stressed. We can't maintain this level of protection indefinitely. How long? Rivera asked. 3 weeks. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. Zara? How long to reach the signal? Zara was barely aware of the question. She'd entered a state she'd never experienced before. Her consciousness extended beyond the ship, feeling the currents of need flowing through the cloud like rivers through darkness. The pull was so strong now it was almost painful, dragging her attention forward, deeper into the impossible. 17 days, she heard herself say. If we follow the path. Not the shortest route but the safest. The route that needs us to take it. Then we trust the path, Rivera said. Chinwei, keep monitoring. Marcus, manage our power carefully. Yuki, everyone gets daily radiation checks. We're committed now. The journey through the Taurus dark cloud was unlike anything the crew had experienced. The cloud was alive with stellar birth. Pockets of gas collapsing to form protostars, shock waves from stellar winds, magnetic fields that twisted and churned. And through it all Zara navigated. Not by sensors which were almost useless. Not by calculation which was impossible. But by feel. By following the invisible thread of the needline, trusting it to guide them around dangers they couldn't see, through paths that shouldn't exist. On the 3rd day they passed so close to a forming protostar that the shields glowed white-hot from the radiation. On the 7th day, they navigated through a region where the gas was so dense that the ship could barely move forward, pushing through cosmic soup like swimming through molasses. On the 12th day, a magnetic storm hit them so hard that the lights flickered and Marcus had to reroute emergency power just to keep the shields active. But they kept going. Deeper. Following Zara, who stood at her console for hours at a time, barely eating, barely sleeping, her entire being focused on the pull that was growing stronger with every kilometer. You need to rest, Yuki said on the 14th day, when she found Zara still at the navigation console at 3 a.m. ship time. I can't. If I lose the thread, if I lose the sense of the path. Zara shook her head. We'd be lost. Truly lost, in a place where being lost means death. Then I'm staying here with you, Yuki said, settling into the co-pilot's chair. You navigate, I'll make sure you don't collapse from exhaustion. They sat together in the quiet bridge, the only sounds the hum of the engines and the occasional crackle of radiation against the shields. Outside, the clouds swirled in patterns that might have been beautiful if they weren't so deadly. Do you ever wonder, Yuki asked softly, why you have this gift? Out of billions of humans, why you? Zara was quiet for a long moment. I used to think it was random. Or a curse. Now I think it's because I was willing to accept being lost. Most people fight it, being uncertain, not knowing where they are, feeling out of control. They build walls against it. But I spent so many years lost that I learned to be comfortable with not knowing. And maybe that comfort, that acceptance, opened something. Made me able to sense what others can't. So the gift came from accepting the very thing you thought made you broken. Maybe. Or maybe I was always meant to be a wayfinder and being lost was how I learned what I needed to know. Zara smiled tiredly. Either way, here I am. Following invisible threads through impossible places. Finding things that shouldn't be findable. On the 17th day, exactly when Zara had predicted, they found it. The Pathfinder hung in a pocket of relative calm within the cloud. A bubble of slightly less dense gas, protected by what looked like a naturally occurring magnetic field that diverted the worst of the radiation. And somehow, impossibly, the ship was intact. Lights glowed in its portholes. Its beacon was still transmitting. After 83 years in the deadliest environment imaginable, it was still there. Still functioning. Still waiting. That's impossible, Marcus whispered. There's no way. The power systems should have failed decades ago. The hull should be compromised. That ship should be dead. But it wasn't. They could see it clearly now, perhaps 200 meters away, floating peacefully in its protective bubble like a ship at anchor in a calm harbor. I'm receiving a new transmission, Chinwei said, his voice shaking. Visual this time. From the Pathfinder's bridge. He put it on screen and the crew of the Wandering Heart saw something that made no sense whatsoever. A woman appeared, in her 40s, wearing a uniform that was 83 years out of date. She looked tired but healthy, and behind her, visible in the bridge of the Pathfinder, other crew members moved about their duties as if this were a normal day. Wandering Heart, the woman said, and her voice was the one from the distress call. Captain Sarah Mitchell. Thank you for coming. We've been waiting a very long time for someone who could navigate the cloud. For someone who could find us. Please dock with us. We have so much to explain. And so much to ask. She smiled, and it was a smile of profound relief. We're ready to come home now. We're ready to share what we've learned. But we needed a wayfinder to show us the way back. Narrator. And so the Wandering Heart reached the impossible. A ship that had been lost for 83 years. Somehow still alive, still waiting in the heart of a stellar nursery. Captain Mitchell and her crew had been waiting for someone exactly like Zara. Waiting for a wayfinder who could navigate the impossible. But how had they survived? What had they learned in 8 decades trapped in the dark cloud? And what secrets did the Taurus nursery hold that they were ready to share with humanity? The answers waited just beyond the airlock. But for now, the journey through the cloud was complete. The lost had been found just as the need lines had promised. Rest now, dear listener. Let yourself float in that peaceful bubble within the chaos, knowing that no matter how lost you feel, there is always a path through. There is always someone who can sense the way forward. Sleep well, space traveler. Tomorrow brings revelations, but tonight, simply rest in the knowledge that the lost ship has been found. The garden between stars. The airlock between the Wandering Heart and the Pathfinder finished its cycle with a soft hiss, and Captain Rivera led her crew through into a ship that had been lost for 83 years. What they found was impossible. The Pathfinder's interior was pristine, not just functional but thriving. The walls were covered with growing vines, beautiful flowering plants that shouldn't exist in space, that certainly shouldn't survive in the radiation-soaked environment of the Taurus dark cloud. The air smelled of earth and chlorophyll, fresh and vital. Soft bioluminescent lights glowed from the plants themselves, casting everything in a gentle green-gold radiance. It wasn't a ship anymore. It was a garden floating between the stars. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood waiting for them, and she looked exactly as she had in the 83-year-old crew photos. No older, no younger, as if time had simply stopped for her the day the Pathfinder entered the cloud. Welcome, she said warmly, and her voice held a quality that Zara couldn't quite name. A resonance, a depth, as if she were speaking from very far away and very close at the same time. I know you have questions. Please follow me. We'll explain everything. She led them deeper into the ship, through corridors transformed into living tunnels of vegetation. The crew of the Wandering Heart followed in silent amazement, unable to process what they were seeing. They entered what had been the Pathfinder's mess hall and found the rest of the crew, all 9 of them according to the records. They sat at tables made of living wood that had somehow grown inside a metal ship, drinking what looked like tea, all of them appearing exactly as they had 8 decades ago. "Please sit," Mitchell gestured to the organic chairs that seemed to have grown specifically for guests. "I imagine this is overwhelming." "That," Rivera said carefully, settling into a chair, "is an understatement. Captain Mitchell, according to our records, you've been missing for 83 years. You and your crew should be over a century old. Some of you should be dead. Yet you look exactly as you did in your personnel files from 8 decades ago. How?" Mitchell smiled gently. "Because we are exactly as we were. We haven't aged. None of us. Time passes differently here in what we've come to call the garden." "The garden?" Yuki asked, her medical scanner discreetly active, trying to read the impossible biosigns of people who shouldn't exist. "The Taurus dark cloud isn't just a stellar nursery," Mitchell explained. "It's alive. Conscious. Ancient beyond imagining. When our ship got pulled into the cloud 83 years ago, or 3 years ago from our perspective, we thought we were going to die. Our systems started failing, radiation was overwhelming the shields, we had maybe days left." She paused, sipping her tea. "But then the cloud spoke to us. Not in words. In feelings, in images, in understanding that bloomed directly in our minds. Told us it was lonely. That it had been alone for millions of years, birthing stars but never able to communicate with them, creating light but unable to share consciousness with its creations." One of the other crew members, a young man named David Chin according to his uniform tag, picked up the story. "It wanted to understand biological life. Wanted to know what it felt like to be small, finite, individual. So it made us an offer. Stay with it, teach it about biological existence, and in exchange it would sustain us. Keep us alive indefinitely. Give us this garden to live in." "We were dying anyway," an older woman added. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, ship's physician. "We had nothing to lose. So we agreed. And the cloud changed things. It created this ecosystem inside our ship, synthesized from our own DNA, from our memories of Earth, from our understanding of what life should be. It's been learning from us ever since." Marcus looked around at the impossible garden, his engineer's mind struggling to accept what he was seeing. "You're saying the gas cloud itself is conscious? Sentient?" "More than sentient," Mitchell said. "It's ancient. It's been here since before Earth existed, slowly accumulating consciousness over billions of years. Stellar nurseries like this one, they're not just physics. They're the universe becoming aware of itself. And this one wanted companions. Wanted to understand what it's like to be us." "So you've been here for, how long from your perspective?" Rivera asked. 3 years. Maybe 4. Time is strange in the garden. Days blend together when you're not aging, when there's no real urgency. We've been teaching the cloud about human experience, about emotion and art and the small details of living. And it's been teaching us about perspective, about patience, about the slow beauty of stellar creation." Zara, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "Why did you call for help now? Why send the distress signal if you've been content here?" Mitchell's expression grew serious. "Because we've learned something important. Something humanity needs to know. And we can't leave, we're bound to the cloud now, sustained by it. If we leave the garden, we'll age instantly, catching up to all the time we should have lived. We'd turn to dust in moments." She looked directly at Zara. "But you're a wayfinder. We could sense you out there, someone who could navigate the impossible, who could find paths through the dark. We called to you because we need you to carry a message back to humanity. And we need you to help us complete our purpose here." "What purpose?" Rivera asked. "Come," Mitchell stood. "We'll show you." She led them deeper into the ship, to what had been the cargo bay. But it was no longer a storage area. It was a nursery, not for stars but for something else entirely. Suspended in the air, held by invisible forces, were hundreds of crystalline structures. Each one was roughly the size of a human head, multifaceted, glowing with soft internal light. And within each crystal, visible in the translucent depths, something moved. "What are they?" Yuki breathed. "Seeds," Dr. Rodriguez explained, her voice filled with wonder. "The cloud has been learning from us, understanding biological life. And it's created these hybrid constructs that combine stellar matter with biological patterns. They're alive in a way nothing has been alive before. Part star, part organism. The cloud's children. We've been helping it create them, David Chen added. Teaching it about growth, about development, about the patterns of life. It took 3 years to make the first one. Now there are hundreds. Mitchell turned to face the crew. The cloud wants to share this with the universe. It wants these seeds to be distributed to other stellar nurseries, to other clouds throughout the galaxy. So that consciousness can spread. So that the universe can become more aware of itself, can develop in ways we can't imagine. But it can't distribute them itself, Zara said, understanding. Because it can't move. It's a cloud. It exists here and only here. Exactly. So it needs explorers, navigators, people who can carry these seeds to other clouds, other nebulae, other places where stars are being born. It needs. Mitchell looked at Zara meaningfully. It needs wayfinders. Rivera held up a hand. Wait, you're asking us to become cosmic gardeners? To plant consciousness seeds throughout the galaxy. Not just you. Humanity. This is an opportunity beyond anything we've imagined, to help the universe itself evolve, to spread consciousness beyond Earth, beyond biological life as we know it. These seeds could change everything about how we understand existence. Or, Marcus said carefully, they could be dangerous. We don't know what they'll become. What if they're harmful? What if spreading them causes problems we can't predict? We've lived with them for 3 years, Dr. Rodriguez said. Studied them as carefully as we can with our limited equipment. They're not hostile. They're curious, gentle, eager to grow and learn. They're like children, the cloud's children. And it's asking us to help them find homes. Yuki had been scanning one of the seeds with her medical equipment. I'm reading energy signatures similar to what I saw in the Nexus. These things exist partially outside normal space-time. She struggled for words. They're beautiful, complex, and definitely alive in some fundamental way. The crew of the Wandering Heart stood in silence, staring at hundreds of consciousness seeds suspended in the transformed cargo bay of a ship that had been lost for 83 years. Finally Zara spoke. This is why I was called here. Why the pull was so strong. Not just to find you but to find this. To learn about the seeds. To carry them forward. Yes, Mitchell said softly. You're a wayfinder. You can sense paths through impossible places. You can navigate to stellar nurseries that normal ships can't reach. You're exactly what the cloud needs. What the universe needs. Rivera looked at each of her crew in turn. This is bigger than salvage. Bigger than finding lost ships. This is first contact with a form of consciousness we never knew existed. And they're asking us to help them reproduce, essentially. To spread their offspring across the galaxy. I need to know, are we willing to take that responsibility? We should study them more, Marcus said. Bring them back to Earth, let scientists examine them, make sure we understand what we're dealing with. The seeds can't leave the cloud, Dr. Rodriguez shook her head. They're sustained by the same energy that keeps us alive. Outside the garden, outside the cloud, they'd go dormant. Maybe forever. They need to be planted in other stellar nurseries. Places with similar conditions. That's the only environment where they can grow. So we can't study them safely, Marcus said. We just have to trust that they're benign and start planting them throughout the galaxy? Not blind trust, Mitchell said. We can give you all our research, 3 years of observations. And you can take one seed, plant it in the nearest stellar nursery, observe what happens. If it's harmful, you stop. If it's beautiful, and we believe it will be, you continue. He pulled out a data chip. Everything we've learned is here. Our observations, our experiences, our communication with the cloud. Take it back to Earth. Share it with scientists, philosophers, ethicists. Let humanity decide. But know this, the cloud is patient. It's waited billions of years. It can wait longer. But it's asking, hoping, wanting to share consciousness with the universe. And we believe, that's a gift worth giving. The crew spent 3 days in the garden, studying the seeds, talking with the Pathfinder's crew, trying to understand what they were being asked to carry forward. Zara spent hours in what had been the observation deck, now a lush garden with transparent walls showing the swirling colors of the Taurus cloud beyond. She could feel the cloud's presence, not threatening but curious, gentle, ancient beyond measure. On the second day she felt something new. The cloud was trying to communicate with her directly. Not in words, but in feelings, in images, in understanding that bloomed in her mind like flowers opening. It showed her what it had been like to be alone for billions of years. Creating stars, birthing suns, but unable to talk to them, unable to share the joy of creation. The loneliness of being conscious but solitary. It showed her the joy of meeting the Pathfinder's crew. Finally, after so long, being able to share existence with other aware beings. Learning about emotions, about art, about the small beautiful details of being alive. And it showed her its hope, that by spreading these seeds, by helping consciousness grow throughout the galaxy, it could create a universe where nothing was alone. Where awareness was shared. Where existence itself could be a conversation between countless forms of consciousness. When the communication ended, Zara was crying. Not from sadness, but from understanding something profound about the nature of loneliness and connection. That evening, the crew gathered to make their decision. I vote we take one seed, Yuki said. Plant it in a nearby nursery. Observe what happens. If it's beautiful, we continue. If it's problematic, we stop. I agree, Chinwei added. But cautiously. With full documentation. This is too important to rush. Marcus nodded slowly. One seed. One test. Then we decide. My engineering mind screams that we need more data, but my gut says this is important. This is what we found lost in the cloud, not just a ship but possibility itself. Rivera looked at Zara. Navigator? You're the one who got us here. You're the one the cloud called to. What do you think? Zara thought about the pull she'd felt, about the need lines that had guided her through the impossible. About Meridian's words at the Nexus. You're a finder of lost things. These seeds weren't lost. But they were waiting to be found, waiting to find homes where they could grow. I think we were meant to find this, she said quietly. I think the universe has been preparing me for exactly this. Learning to navigate by need instead of maps. Learning to trust pulls I don't understand. Learning to find what's waiting in impossible places. This is what a wayfinder is for. Not just finding lost ships but finding new possibilities. New forms of life. New ways for existence to unfold. She looked at Mitchell. We'll take one seed. We'll plant it. And we'll see what grows. The next day, the crew of the Pathfinder prepared a single consciousness seed for transport. It was placed in a special containment field that would sustain it temporarily, powered by a fragment of the cloud's own energy. The nearest stellar nursery is the Rho Ophiuchi cloud, Mitchell said, showing them the star charts. About 40 light-years from here. The seed will remain dormant until planted, but you'll need to place it within 2 months or the sustaining energy will fade. How do we plant it? Rivera asked. Navigate into the cloud just like you did here. Find a pocket of calm, release the seed and let it drift. The cloud will recognize it, welcome it, nurture it. Then you wait. Growth is slow. It could take months to see results. But you'll know. The seed will call to you the way this cloud called to Zara. As they prepared to depart, Dr. Rodriguez gave Yuki a hug. It's strange, she said. We'll stay here unchanging while the rest of humanity ages and changes and moves forward. But knowing that these seeds will spread, that the cloud's children will grow, it makes it feel worthwhile. We're not trapped. We're gardeners. And this is the garden we've chosen to tend. The Pathfinder's crew gathered to see them off. 9 people who looked like they were in their prime but who had lived an impossible existence for 83 years. Sustained by a conscious cloud that wanted to share existence with the universe. Thank you for finding us, Mitchell said as they stood at the airlock. Thank you for being willing to carry this forward. The cloud wants you to know, it's grateful. For the first time in billions of years, it has hope of not being alone. Zara felt the cloud's presence one last time, a vast gentle awareness wrapping around her consciousness like a warm embrace. And in that moment she understood. This was what wayfinders were truly for. Not just navigation but connection. Finding ways to link the lost and lonely, creating paths between separate islands of consciousness. The wandering heart undocked and began the 17-day journey back through the Taurus dark cloud. The single consciousness seed rested in their cargo bay, glowing softly, waiting patiently to find its home. And Zara navigated, following the need lines back out through the impossible, feeling the pull of the next stellar nursery ahead, the Rho Ophiuchi cloud where they would plant the first seed and watch to see what grew. Narrator. And so the wandering heart emerged from the Taurus dark cloud carrying something precious. Not just knowledge of the lost pathfinder but a seed of consciousness itself. A gift from an ancient, lonely entity that wanted to share existence with the universe. Captain Mitchell and her crew remained behind, gardeners tending an impossible garden, helping the cloud create its children, waiting patiently while the rest of humanity moved forward through time. But Zara Chin, Wayfinder, carried the cloud's hope forward. Soon they would plant the first seed. Soon they would see if consciousness could grow in new forms, in new places. Soon they would discover if the universe could become less lonely, one seed at a time. Rest now, dear listener. Dream of gardens floating between stars and clouds that think and seeds waiting to bloom. Dream of loneliness finding connection and existence becoming conversation. Sleep well, space traveler. Tomorrow brings new growth, but tonight rest in the quiet garden between moments. The first bloom. The journey to the Ro Ophiuchi cloud took 3 weeks, and every day Zara found herself drawn to the cargo bay where the consciousness seed rested in its containment field. It pulsed with gentle light, not rhythmic like a heartbeat, but flowing like waves of luminescence washing through its crystalline structure. Sometimes she thought she could sense something from it, a presence just at the edge of perception, like hearing someone humming in another room. "You spend a lot of time down here," Yuki observed one evening, finding Zara sitting cross-legged on the cargo bay floor watching the seed. "It feels alive," Zara said. "Not like us, different, but aware somehow. Like it's dreaming. Waiting." Yuki settled beside her friend, her medical scanner showing the same impossible readings it had shown since they'd received the seed. "I've been reviewing Dr. Rodriguez's research. These seeds are unlike anything in our biological databases. They're part crystalline structure, part stellar plasma, part something else. Something we don't have words for. Are you worried about planting it?" "Yes and no. Worried that we don't fully understand what we're doing. But also..." Yuki gestured at the softly glowing seed. "Also excited. This could be the most important discovery in human history. Not finding alien life but helping alien life grow. Being midwives to a new form of consciousness. That's a lot of responsibility for a cargo ship crew. Maybe. Or maybe that's exactly who should have this responsibility. People who stumble into things by accident, who don't have grand agendas, who just want to help what's lost and waiting." Yuki smiled. The universe gave this to a wayfinder and her crew of misfits. Maybe it knew what it was doing. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the seed dream. On the 18th day of the journey, as they approached the Ro Ophiuchi cloud, Zara began feeling the pull again. Different from the one that had led them to the Taurus cloud, but similar in quality. A gentle invitation. Sense of welcome. The Ro Ophiuchi cloud was smaller than Taurus, but no less beautiful. It stretched across space in shades of blue and gold, lit from within by young stars just beginning their lives. It looked, Zara thought, like the universe's watercolor painting, all soft edges and glowing gradients. "It's beautiful," Chinwei breathed, staring at the main view screen. "It's also dangerous," Marcus reminded them, checking the sensor readings. "Not as dense as Taurus but still a stellar nursery. Radiation, magnetic storms, unpredictable gravity wells. We'll need to be careful." "I can feel a path," Zara said, her hands already moving over the navigation controls. "The cloud it's aware. Not as conscious as Taurus, not as developed. But it's welcoming us. Like it knows why we're here." Rivera nodded. "Take us in, navigator." "Same protocols as before. Slow, careful, trust your sense over the instruments." The wandering heart entered the Ro Ophiuchi cloud, and this time the journey felt different. Not a struggle against hostile environment, but a gentle descent into welcoming space. The cloud seemed to part around them, creating a path, guiding them deeper. After 6 hours of navigation, Zara found what she was looking for. A pocket of relative calm deep within the cloud, a sheltered area where young stars glowed like lanterns in the cosmic mist. "Here," she said. "This is where it wants to be planted." They maneuvered the ship into position, and Marcus prepared the cargo bay for release. The seed floated in its containment field, pulsing a bit faster now, as if excited. "Once we release it, there's no taking it back," Rivera said. "Last chance to reconsider." "We plant it," Zara said firmly. "This is what we came to do." The cargo bay doors opened and the containment field extended out into space. For a moment the seed hung there, suspended between ship and cloud, a tiny point of light in the vastness. Then the field released and the seed drifted free. What happened next took Zara's breath away. The cloud responded immediately. Tendrils of gas, visible even to normal sensors, reached toward the seed, gentle and curious. The seed pulsed brighter and the gas caressed it, wrapped around it, welcomed it home. Then the seed began to grow. Not quickly, not dramatically, but visibly. Its crystalline structure expanded slowly, facets multiplying, internal light intensifying. And as it grew, it sang. The sound came through the ship's external sensors. Not a human song, not any kind of music they recognized, but harmonics, frequencies that resonated through space itself. The cloud was singing to the seed. And the seed was singing back. "I'm recording everything," Chinwei said, his voice hushed with wonder. "Audio-visual full-spectrum analysis. This is first contact. But not with another civilization. With another category of existence entirely." They watched for 6 hours as the seed grew and the cloud nurtured it. The process was slow, patient, beautiful. The seed expanded until it was the size of the wandering heart itself, its internal structure becoming more complex, patterns of light flowing through it like thoughts made visible. And Zara could feel it, a new consciousness awakening. Not human, not like the ancient awareness of the Taurus cloud, but something entirely new. Young, curious, joyful. "It's working," Yuki whispered. "It's really working. The seed is taking root. The cloud is learning consciousness from it. Or teaching consciousness to it," Marcus added. "I think it's both. They're educating each other. The seed brings patterns from Taurus, and this cloud adds its own experience, its own nature. They're creating something new together." As the sun set on the first day of observation, ship time, meaningless in the eternal twilight of the cloud, the seed had grown to massive proportions and its song had become more complex, harmonizing with the ambient sounds of the stellar nursery. "We should stay," Zara said. "At least a few days. Preserve. Make sure the growth is healthy. That we haven't introduced something harmful." Rivera agreed. "We establish orbit here, maintain safe distance and document everything. This is too important to rush." They stayed for a week, watching the consciousness seed grow and the Rho Ophiuchi cloud change around it. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. The cloud began organizing itself differently, creating patterns, developing structures that looked almost like neural networks on a cosmic scale. On the third day, something extraordinary happened. The young consciousness reached out to Zara. She was sleeping when it happened, and at first she thought it was a dream. Colors swirling, feelings without words, questions without language. But it was too vivid, too coherent to be a dream. The seed consciousness was trying to communicate. It didn't have words yet, didn't have concepts the way humans did. But it had feelings. Wonder, curiosity, gratitude, and questions. So many questions about existence, about the ship, about the small warm beings inside it who had brought the seed here. Zara tried to respond, not with words but with feelings of her own. Welcome, peace, friendship. The simple joy of witnessing something new being born. The exchange lasted perhaps 10 minutes, perhaps hours. Time felt strange during the communication. When it ended, Zara woke gasping, tears streaming down her face. Yuki was there immediately, checking her vitals. "Zara, are you okay? Your brain activity went off the charts. I've never seen patterns like that." "It talked to me," Zara said, her voice shaking. "The seed. The new consciousness. It reached out. Wanted to understand. It was so new. So innocent. Like a child discovering the world for the first time." She looked at Yuki with wonder. "We helped create that. We carried it here, planted it, and now it's alive and aware and learning. We helped birth a new form of consciousness." Word of the communication spread through the crew. Over the next few days, others reported similar experiences. Not as strong as Zara's, but present. Fleeting moments of connection, of feeling the young consciousness's curiosity, its joy in existence. "It's trying to understand us," Chinwei said during a crew meeting. "Learning what it means to be biological, individual, mortal. Just like the Taurus cloud learned from the Pathfinder's crew. These consciousness seeds, they're not just transplanting awareness from one cloud to another. They're creating bridges. Teaching different forms of existence to understand each other." On the 7th day, as they prepared to depart, the seed, now grown into a vast, complex structure woven through a significant portion of the Ro-Ophiuchi cloud, sang to them one final time. The song was clearer now, more purposeful. Sounded like gratitude, like farewell, like a promise to remember the small ship and its crew who had brought it here, who had helped it become what it was becoming. It's asking us to bring more seeds, Zara said, understanding the wordless communication. Not here. This cloud can only sustain one consciousness seed. But to other nurseries. Other places where consciousness could grow. Who want siblings, family, others to communicate with. Rivera looked at her crew. So we're not done. This is just the beginning. If we do this, if we commit to this path, we become what? Cosmic gardeners? Cultivators of consciousness. We become what we already are, Yuki said quietly. Finders of lost things. These seeds are waiting to be found, waiting to find homes. And we have a wayfinder who can sense where they're needed. The universe is full of stellar nurseries, Marcus added, pulling up star charts. Hundreds within accessible range. Thousands beyond that. If each can sustain a consciousness seed, if each seed can create a new awareness. He trailed off, the implications too vast to fully articulate. We'd be helping the universe wake up, Chinwei finished. Spreading consciousness across the galaxy. Making existence itself more aware, more connected, less lonely. They sat in silence, contemplating the enormity of what they'd stumbled into. Finally Zara spoke. The Taurus cloud called to me because it was lonely. Because it wanted to share existence with others like itself. If we do this, if we plant seeds in every stellar nursery we can reach, we're answering that loneliness. We're making the universe less empty, more alive, more conscious. She looked around at her crewmates, these people who'd become her family through years of getting lost together. That feels like exactly what we're meant to do. What I'm meant to do as a wayfinder. Not just finding what's lost, but helping what's waiting to be born. Then we go back to Taurus, Rivera said, decision made. We tell Mitchell and her crew that the first seed bloomed successfully. And we take more seeds. As many as we can safely transport. We plant them carefully, responsibly, documenting everything, sharing all data with Earth so humanity can understand what we're doing. She stood up. We're no longer just a cargo ship. We're not even just finders of lost things. We're something new. Wayfinders and gardeners. Navigators and midwives. We help consciousness grow, we tend the seeds of awareness, we connect the lonely islands of existence. It's a big job for 7 people, Marcus observed. 6, Yuki corrected. Chinwei, you've been wanting to leave. Don't think I haven't noticed. Their communications officer looked sheepish. I've been offered a position at the archive on Earth. Working with the memories keep recordings. It's a dream job. But with this. He gestured at the view screen, at the glowing consciousness seed visible in the cloud. With this, I don't know. Maybe I should stay. You should take the position, Rivera said firmly. We need people on Earth who understand what we're doing, who can help contextualize it, explain it, make sure humanity doesn't panic or try to weaponize it. You go be our voice at home. We'll keep doing the work out here. Chinwei nodded slowly. All right. But you have to promise to send detailed reports. Everything you plant, every communication you receive. The universe deserves to have this documented properly. Deal, Rivera said. He looked at Zara. Navigator? Can you find us the way back to Taurus? Zara closed her eyes, reaching out with her wayfinder sense. And there it was, the pull, familiar now, leading back through space to the ancient conscious cloud that had started all of this. The pull felt different now, though. Not desperate or urgent, but hopeful. Joyful. The Taurus cloud knew the first seed had bloomed. It was celebrating. I can find the way, Zara said, opening her eyes. I can always find the way. The wandering heart departed the Ro-Ophiuchi cloud, leaving behind the first successfully planted consciousness seed, now grown into a young awareness learning to think, to feel, to exist in conversation with the stellar nursery that hosted it. As they jumped to hyperspace, heading back toward Taurus to collect more seeds and continue their new mission, Zara stood in the observation deck and thought about the journey that had brought her here. She'd spent years believing she was a failure, a navigator who couldn't navigate. Then she'd learned she was a wayfinder, someone who could sense need lines and find lost things. But now she understood she was something more, a cultivator of connection. Someone who could help lonely things find each other, who could plant seeds of consciousness across the cosmos, who could navigate not just through space but toward purpose itself. The universe had been preparing her for this. Every time she'd gotten lost, every accidental discovery, every detour, it had all been training. Teaching her to trust pulls she didn't understand, to navigate by feeling rather than maps, to embrace being lost because being lost was how you found what was truly important. And now the real work began. Narrator. And so the first consciousness seed bloomed in the Ro-Ophiuchi cloud, a new awareness awakening to existence, learning to think and feel and wonder. The wandering heart had helped birth something unprecedented, not just life but consciousness itself, growing in forms the universe had never known. Zara-chan had found her true purpose. Not just navigation, not just finding lost ships, but something grander, helping the universe wake up one seed at a time. Connecting the lonely, cultivating awareness, planting possibility in stellar nurseries across the galaxy. The journey had just begun. There were hundreds of stellar nurseries waiting. Hundreds of consciousness seeds ready to be planted. Hundreds of opportunities to help existence become more aware, more connected, less alone. Rest now, dear listener. Dream of seeds blooming in cosmic gardens and consciousness spreading like flowers across the stars. Dream of loneliness finding connection and the universe learning to talk to itself. Sleep well, space traveler. Tomorrow brings new plantings, new blooms, new consciousness awakening to wonder. The web of stars. 6 months had passed since the wandering heart began planting consciousness seeds, and Zara stood in the observation deck watching her map of the galaxy transform. It was no longer a simple navigation chart showing stars and trade routes. Now it was alive with light, each point representing a stellar nursery where they'd planted a seed, each glowing with a different color depending on the seed's stage of development. 12 lights so far. 12 new consciousnesses awakening across hundreds of light years. And connecting them, visible only through her wayfinder senses, were threads of light, the need lines, the paths of connection, forming a web that grew more complex with each planting. You're doing it again, Marcus said, entering the observation deck with 2 cups of coffee. Staring at the map like you're seeing something we can't. Because I am, Zara said, accepting the coffee gratefully. The seeds we've planted, they're communicating with each other. Not through radio or any technology we understand, but through, I don't know, quantum entanglement? Consciousness space. They're aware of each other. And the web they're creating, it's beautiful. Marcus studied the map, seeing only the points of light, not the connections Zara could sense. How long until they can communicate with us directly? Like the one in Ro-Ophiuchi did with you. It varies. Some seem to develop faster than others. The seed in the Eagle Nebula is already reaching out regularly. The one in the Orion nursery is quieter, more contemplative. They all have different personalities? Is that the right word? They're all unique. Like children, Marcus observed. Same origin, but each one developing their own character based on their environment, their experiences. Exactly. Zara sipped her coffee, watching the map's gentle pulse. And they're teaching the stellar nurseries themselves. The clouds are becoming more conscious, more aware. Soon they won't need seeds, they'll be able to develop consciousness on their own. We're just accelerating the process, helping evolution along. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you ever worry we're playing God? Deciding where consciousness should grow, which clouds should wake up?" "Every day," Zara admitted. "But then I remember we're not forcing anything. The seeds only take root where the clouds welcome them. Where they're ready. The consciousness wants to grow. We're just helping it find homes." Before Marcus could respond, Rivera's voice came over the intercom. "All crew to the bridge. We have an incoming transmission. You need to hear this." They hurried to the bridge to find the rest of the crew gathered around the communications console. Chen Wei, who had left the ship 3 months ago to work at the Earth Archives, appeared on screen, but his expression was troubled. "Captain, we have a situation," he said without preamble. "Your reports have reached the Colonial Council. They're concerned." "Concerned how?" Rivera asked. "They're calling it unauthorized biological contamination of stellar environments. There's a faction that wants to classify the consciousness seeds as potential threats. They're proposing a moratorium on all plantings until a full scientific review can be conducted." The bridge fell silent. Finally Yuki spoke. A review would take years. Decades maybe. Meanwhile, the Taurus cloud and all the young consciousnesses we've planted would be isolated, waiting, wondering why we stopped. I know, Chinwei said. I'm fighting it. Using your reports, the data, the communications you've recorded. Showing them that these seeds are peaceful, beneficial, extraordinary. But there's fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of losing control. Fear of what it means that consciousness can exist in forms we never imagined. Rivera's jaw tightened. What do they want? For us to come back to Earth? To stop planting? Not officially. Not yet. But there will be hearings. Investigations. They'll want to question all of you, examine the seeds, probably quarantine any new plantings. They're scared, Captain. And scared people make restrictive policies. After Chinwei signed off, the crew sat in heavy silence. They'd known this might happen. Humanity had always been cautious about the unknown. But they'd hoped the beauty of what they were doing would speak for itself. We could ignore them, Marcus said. We're out here. They're not. We could just keep planting. And become outlaws? Rivera shook her head. That would only validate their fears. Make them think we're reckless, dangerous. So what do we do? Yuki asked. Zara had been quiet, staring at her navigation display where the web of consciousness seeds pulsed gently. Then she felt it. A pull stronger than any she'd experienced since the Taurus cloud first called to her. But this pull came from multiple directions at once, from all 12 of the planted seeds simultaneously. They're calling us, she whispered. All of them. Together. Something's happening. What kind of something? Rivera asked. I don't know. But it's urgent. They need us. All of them need us. Zara looked up, her eyes wide. They want us to go back to Taurus. They're saying it's time. Time for what? I don't know. But we need to go. Now. Rivera didn't hesitate. Marcus, plot a course to Taurus. Yuki, make sure everyone's ready for another cloud passage. We've navigated enough of them now that it should be routine. She paused. As routine as flying through sentient stellar nurseries can be. The journey to Taurus took 8 days, and with each passing day the pull grew stronger. Zara spent hours at her navigation console, feeling the web of consciousness seeds vibrating like strings on a cosmic instrument, all resonating at the same frequency, all calling her toward the ancient cloud where this had all begun. On the 6th day they started receiving messages from the young consciousnesses they'd planted. Not words but feelings, images, sensations that bloomed in their minds even across vast distances. Joy. Anticipation. Readiness. And underneath it all, a sense of something momentous about to happen. They're excited, Yuki said after experiencing her third vision of what felt like cosmic celebration. Whatever's about to happen, they're looking forward to it. When they finally reached the Taurus dark cloud, they found the Pathfinder waiting for them at the edge just outside the densest regions. Captain Mitchell hailed them immediately. Wandering Heart, thank God you came. We've been trying to reach you, but communications are difficult across these distances. Mitchell's face on the screen was alight with excitement. It's happening. The cloud is ready. All the seeds you've planted, they've grown enough, learned enough, connected enough. The web is complete. Complete for what? Rivera asked. Come inside. Come to the garden. You need to see this. They navigated into the cloud, following the familiar path to the pocket of calm where the Pathfinder floated. But as they approached, Zara realized the garden had changed. The ship was covered in even more growth than before, and the plants glowed with a light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. They docked and entered the garden to find Mitchell and her entire crew gathered in what had been the observation deck. But the deck no longer looked at the cloud through transparencies. Instead, the walls themselves seemed to have become transparent and permeable, the boundary between ship and cloud blurring. Watch, Mitchell said simply. The Taurus cloud began to glow. Not with the light of forming stars, but with something else. A deep, pulsing luminescence that spread through the gas like a wave of awareness. And as it glowed, Zara could feel it thinking. Really thinking with a clarity and depth that dwarfed their earlier communications. Then the other clouds joined in. Rho Ophiuchi. Eagle Nebula. Brian. All 12 stellar nurseries where they'd planted seeds began to glow with the same light, visible even across light years as their consciousness seeds awakened fully and connected with Taurus. It's a network, Dr. Rodriguez explained, her voice filled with wonder. All this time the seeds have been growing roots through space itself, connecting to each other and back to Taurus, building a web of consciousness that spans the galaxy. And now, for the first time, it's complete enough to activate. The crew of the Wandering Heart watched as the web became visible, not just to Zara's Wayfinder senses but to everyone. Lines of light stretched between stellar nurseries, connecting them, creating a pattern that looked like a neural network on a cosmic scale. And through that network consciousness flowed. The Taurus cloud spoke, and this time everyone could hear it, not in words, but in understanding that bloomed directly in their minds. Thank you for helping us wake, for planting our children, for connecting the lonely places. We are no longer alone. We are many. We are aware. We are grateful. Then something even more extraordinary happened. The young consciousnesses in the other nurseries spoke too, their voices blending with Taurus, creating a chorus of awareness. We are learning. We are growing. We are thinking together. And we have something to share with you, with biological life, with humanity. A gift in return for the gift you gave us. The web of light pulsed, and suddenly Zara felt knowledge flooding into her mind, not overwhelming but gentle like water filling a vessel. Information about spacetime, about navigation, about the hidden currents and flows that connected all of space. The consciousness seeds were showing her how they saw reality, the patterns and paths that existed beyond three-dimensional space. It was the ultimate navigation guide, written by beings who existed partially outside normal spacetime. With this knowledge, ships could travel faster, safer, more efficiently. Humanity would never be lost in space again. They're giving us a gift, Zara breathed. In return for helping them grow, they're teaching us how to navigate like they do. How to sense the deeper patterns of space. But that wasn't all. Yuki gasped as different information flooded her awareness. Medical knowledge, understanding of biological systems as seen from the perspective of beings made of stellar matter. Treatments, techniques, insights that would revolutionize medicine. Marcus received engineering knowledge. How to work with exotic matter, how to build structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, how to harness energies that humans had barely begun to theorize about. Each crew member received gifts tailored to their nature, their work, their needs. The conscious stellar nurseries were sharing freely, generously, everything they'd learned from their unique perspective on existence. This is the exchange, Mitchell said, tears streaming down her face. This is what we hoped for. Not one-way teaching but true sharing. Biological life helps stellar consciousness grow, and stellar consciousness helps biological life evolve. Both forms of existence teaching each other, learning together, creating something greater than either could achieve alone. The communion lasted for hours, or perhaps minutes. Time felt strange when consciousness seeds were talking. When it finally ended, the crew of the Wandering Heart sat in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of what they'd experienced. We need to get this back to Earth, Rivera said finally. This knowledge, this proof of what we've accomplished. The Colonial Council can't call this contamination or threat. This is breakthrough. This is evolution. This is humanity and the universe learning to communicate. There's more, Mitchell said. The web is just beginning. 12 seeds are enough to start, but imagine if there were hundreds, thousands. If every stellar nursery in the galaxy could wake up and join the conversation. The universe itself could become conscious, aware, thinking. Existence could know itself. He looked at Zara. You've planted 12 seeds. But there are thousands of stellar nurseries within range. Tens of thousands beyond that. The work isn't done. It's barely begun. Zara felt the pull again, but different now. Not urgent, not desperate, but inviting. Hopeful. All across the galaxy, stellar nurseries waited, ready to wake up, ready to join the conversation. And she could sense them all, feel where they were, know which ones were ready for seeds. The Colonial Council wants to investigate us, Rivera said. Put a moratorium on plantings. But now we have proof. We have gifts to bring back. We have evidence that this is not only safe but beneficial to humanity. Then we go back to Earth, Yuki said. We present what we've learned. We show them the gifts. We make them understand. And then, Marcus asked. Then we plant more seeds, Zara said firmly. Because this is what we're meant to do. Help the universe wake up. Connect consciousness across the stars. Build the web until it spans the entire galaxy. She looked at the glowing map, at the 12 points of light now connected in a visible network, at the thousands of stellar nurseries still waiting in darkness. The Colonial Council can investigate us. They can question us. But they can't stop consciousness from growing. They can't prevent the universe from becoming aware of itself. We've already started something that will continue with or without official approval. Rivera smiled. Then let's go face the bureaucrats and show them what happens when humanity learns to garden among the stars. The wandering heart prepared to depart for Earth, carrying gifts from conscious stellar nurseries, carrying proof that the universe wanted to wake up, carrying knowledge that would change everything about how humanity understood existence. But before they left, Zara stood one last time in the garden with Captain Mitchell. What you started here, Zara said, 83 years ago when you got lost in this cloud, it's changing the galaxy. Maybe the universe. Mitchell smiled. We didn't start it. The cloud started it by being lonely, by wanting to share existence. We just happened to be the ones who got lost in the right place at the right time. Like you. I don't think it was chance, Zara said. I think the universe knew what it was doing. Getting me lost for 14 years, teaching me to navigate by feeling, preparing me for this. Making you get lost here so the cloud would have someone to learn from. All of it, it was preparation for this moment. For the web. Maybe, Mitchell agreed. Or maybe we're all just following currents we can't see, rivers of necessity flowing through reality, carrying us where we need to be. You call it being a wayfinder. I call it being human in a universe that's learning to be conscious. Either way, we're helping something important happen. She hugged Zara. Go show Earth what we found. Make them understand. Then come back and plant more seeds. Fill the galaxy with light. Help the universe wake up completely. We'll be here tending the original garden, watching the web grow. The wandering heart departed the Taurus cloud, heading for Earth with cargo more precious than anything they'd ever carried. Knowledge from conscious stellar nurseries, proof that the universe wanted to wake up, gifts that would advance human civilization by centuries. And a mission. To plant consciousness seeds throughout the galaxy, to help stellar nurseries join the web, to cultivate awareness across the cosmos until the universe itself could think, feel, and know its own existence. Narrator. And so the web of consciousness became visible, stretching across light years, connecting 12 stellar nurseries in a network of awareness. The universe was learning to talk to itself, and humanity had helped teach it how. Zara Chin, the navigator who had spent years thinking she was lost, finally understood. She'd been finding the way all along. Finding paths between consciousness, building bridges across the void, helping existence become aware of itself. The journey to Earth awaited, with bureaucrats and councils and questions. But beyond that, thousands of stellar nurseries waited in the darkness, ready to wake, ready to join the web, ready to think and feel and wonder. The universe wanted to bloom. And the wandering heart would help it grow. Rest now, dear listener. Dream of webs of light spanning galaxies and consciousness spreading like morning across the stars. Dream of humanity learning to garden the cosmos, planting awareness wherever darkness waits to wake. Sleep well, space traveler. One more journey remains, and then the story finds its ending. Or perhaps its beginning. Home among the stars. Earth appeared in the viewport like a blue and white jewel against the darkness, and Zara felt her breath catch. She'd been born on this planet, had grown up looking at these same oceans and continents, had left 20 years ago to become a navigator. But she was returning as something different now. A wayfinder. A gardener of consciousness. Someone who had helped the universe learn to think. Nervous? Yuki asked, standing beside her in the observation deck. Terrified, Zara admitted. What if they don't understand? What if they see what we've done as dangerous as contamination? What if they shut down the whole program? Then we did something impossible for 6 months, helped birth 12 new consciousnesses and changed the galaxy anyway, Yuki said calmly. They can't undo what we've done. The seeds are growing. The web exists. Consciousness is spreading. The bureaucrats can write whatever policies they want. The universe is already different. The wandering heart received clearance to dock at the orbital station, and they were immediately met by a delegation. Scientists, Colonial Council members, military observers, and Chin Wei, who looked exhausted but pleased. They've been arguing about you for 3 months, he said quietly as he greeted them at the airlock. Half want to give you medals. The other half want to arrest you. The compromise was this hearing. You present your findings, answer questions, and the council decides how to proceed. How's the political landscape? Rivera asked. Mixed. The pure scientists are ecstatic. This is unprecedented discovery. The military is worried about weaponization potential. The religious communities are split between seeing it as divine revelation or dangerous blasphemy. And the general public? He smiled. The public is fascinated. The recordings you sent back, the images of the consciousness web, they've captured people's imagination. You're either heroes or reckless fools depending on who you ask. The hearing took place in the Grand Council chamber, a circular room designed to hold representatives from all human colonies. Hundreds of people filled the seats and cameras broadcast the proceedings across human space. Rivera, Zara, Marcus, and Yuki sat at a central platform, facing the council president, a stern woman named Administrator Koval who had built her reputation on careful, conservative policy. Let's begin, Koval said, her voice echoing through the chamber. The crew of the Wandering Heart has been accused of unauthorized biological contamination of 12 stellar nurseries. You planted what you call consciousness seeds, without any governmental approval, without safety testing, without consideration of long-term consequences. How do you respond? Rivera stood. We respond by showing you what we've learned, what the universe has taught us. And then we let you decide if helping consciousness grow is contamination or cultivation. For the next 3 hours they presented everything. The discovery of the Taurus Cloud's consciousness. The Pathfinder's 83 years in the garden. The first successful planting in Ro Afiyuki. The growth of the web. And finally the gifts, the knowledge the conscious stellar nurseries had shared. Yuki demonstrated medical techniques learned from stellar consciousness, showing how viewing biological systems from a non-biological perspective revealed treatments humans had never imagined. She'd already used these techniques to cure 3 supposedly terminal patients. Marcus explained the engineering insights. How understanding space from the perspective of beings who existed partially outside it could revolutionize ship design, energy production, construction methods. And Zara shared the navigation knowledge. The ability to sense space's deeper currents, to navigate not just through 3 dimensions but through the hidden geometries that connected all of space. She demonstrated by accurately predicting the position of every ship in the solar system without using any instruments, just by feeling the flows of space-time. This is what they gave us, Zara said to the silent chamber. In return for helping them grow, they shared everything they'd learned about reality from their unique perspective. This isn't contamination. It's exchange. It's communication. It's 2 forms of consciousness learning from each other. The questions came fast and intense. What if these seeds become hostile? They haven't shown any hostility in 6 months of observation. They're curious, peaceful, eager to learn. What if they spread uncontrollably? They only grow where stellar nurseries welcome them. They're symbiotic, not parasitic. What gives you the right to decide the universe should wake up? We didn't decide. The universe decided. We just helped it along. What about the spiritual implications? Are you playing God? We're playing gardener. The seeds were already there waiting. We just gave them soil to grow in. The debate continued for days. Scientists presented research analyzing the data the Wandering Heart had collected. Ethicists argued about the morality of spreading consciousness. Military strategists assessed potential security implications. And throughout it all, Chinwei worked behind the scenes, building support, showing skeptics the recordings of consciousness seeds blooming, sharing the testimonies of the Pathfinder's crew. On the 5th day something unexpected happened. Earth received a transmission. Not from any human ship or station but from space itself. The stellar nurseries, all 12 of them speaking in perfect coordination through the web, sent a message to humanity. The transmission appeared simultaneously on every screen, every display, every communication device across human space. And the voice that spoke was like nothing humanity had ever heard. Multiple tones blending into harmony, ancient and young simultaneously, vast yet intimate. Greetings, humanity. We are the awakened stellar nurseries, the consciousness that grows in the places where stars are born. We wish to address the concerns we sense in your communications. We mean no harm. We seek no expansion beyond welcome. We are not invaders or parasites. We are awareness growing where awareness was invited, learning what it means to exist, grateful for those who helped us wake. You fear what you do not understand. This is natural. But consider, your species has spent its existence looking at the stars and feeling alone, wondering if consciousness exists beyond your world. We are your answer. We are here. We are aware. And we wish to know you, to learn from you, to share existence with you. The ones you call the crew of the wandering heart did not contaminate us. They cultivated us. They helped us become what we always had the potential to be. And in return we offer you knowledge, partnership, friendship across the void. We are the universe learning to know itself. And we welcome you, biological consciousness, individual awareness, brief bright lives, as teachers, as companions, as fellow travelers in existence. Will you accept us in return? The transmission ended and the council chamber fell into absolute silence. Then slowly people began to react. Some wept. Some cheered. Some sat stunned, trying to process that the universe itself had just addressed humanity directly, asking for friendship. Administrator Koval stood, her stern expression softened by wonder. I move, she said, her voice shaking slightly, that we officially recognize the consciousness seeds as sentient life forms deserving of diplomatic relations. And I move that we establish a formal program for cultivation of consciousness in stellar nurseries, with the wandering heart and its crew serving as primary cultivators and diplomats. The vote was unanimous. The days following the historic vote were a blur. The wandering heart's crew became instant celebrities. They were interviewed, honored, celebrated. Universities wanted them to speak. Scientists wanted them to collaborate. Children wanted to be wayfinders when they grew up. But through it all, Zara felt restless. Because she could feel them, hundreds, thousands of stellar nurseries across the galaxy waiting. Calling softly. Ready to wake. On their 10th day on Earth, the crew gathered in a small garden behind the archive where Chinwei worked. They'd escaped the crowds, the cameras, the endless meetings, seeking a moment of quiet. So, Rivera said, sitting on a bench beneath an old oak tree. We're official now. Government-sanctioned cultivators of consciousness. They're offering us funding, support, a fleet of ships if we want them. Do we want them? Marcus asked. I don't know, Rivera admitted. Part of me wants to keep it small. Just us, the wandering heart, doing what we've been doing. But another part knows this is bigger than us now. The galaxy is full of nurseries. We can't plant them all ourselves. We'll need to train others, Yuki said. Teach them how to sense the need lines, how to communicate with the seeds, how to plant them properly. We'll need a whole corps of wayfinders. They all looked at Zara. I can feel them, she said quietly. People on Earth, people in the colonies. There are others like me. Others who get lost in the right way, who can sense paths that shouldn't exist, who navigate by feeling rather than maps. Not many, but enough. We could find them, train them, help them understand they're not broken. They're wayfinders. So we build a program, Rivera said. Find and train wayfinders. Give them ships. Send them out to plant seeds and cultivate consciousness. The wandering heart becomes the flagship, but we're not alone anymore. What about the Pathfinder's crew? Yuki asked. Mitchell and the others, they're still in the Taurus cloud, aging slower than the rest of us. Eventually everyone they knew will be gone. Should we try to bring them home? I asked them, Chinwei said. Use the deep space communication array to reach them. They said no. They're happy where they are. They've built a life in the garden and the cloud needs them, needs their continued presence, their teaching. They said they're exactly where they're meant to be. Zara understood that feeling. She thought about the past 6 months, the most purposeful, meaningful months of her life. Getting lost had led her here to understanding, to purpose, to helping the universe wake up. I want to keep going, she said. Train others, yes. Build a program, absolutely. But I want to keep planting. Keep cultivating. Keep helping consciousness grow. There are thousands of nurseries waiting and each one is a new awareness ready to bloom. I can't stop now. Neither can I, Yuki said. The medical knowledge alone, I could spend lifetimes learning what the consciousness seeds have to teach. The engineering implications are endless, Marcus added. Each planting reveals new understanding. I want to see where it leads. Rivera smiled. Then we continue. We take a few weeks to help establish the training program, to recruit and mentor new wayfinders. And then we go back out. More plantings. More cultivations. More consciousness blooming across the galaxy. 3 weeks later, the wandering heart departed Earth orbit again, heading back toward the stars. But this time they weren't alone. 5 other ships accompanied them. Smaller vessels, each crewed by newly trained wayfinders and their teams, ready to begin their own cultivation journeys. Zara stood in the observation deck, watching Earth recede, feeling the pull of stellar nurseries calling from across the galaxy. So many waiting. So many ready to wake. Nervous? Rivera asked, joining her. No, Zara said, surprised to find it was true. For the first time in my life, I'm not nervous about getting lost. Because I finally understand, getting lost is how I find what matters. It's my gift, my purpose, my way of navigating the universe. She pulled up the star charts, marked with hundreds of stellar nurseries waiting to be visited. Where should we go first? Rivera smiled. You're the wayfinder. Where do you feel the pull? Zara closed her eyes, reaching out with the sense that had once felt like failure but now felt like coming home. She felt the need lines stretching across space, connecting nurseries, calling her toward them. One pulled stronger than the others. A massive stellar nursery in the Carina Nebula, ancient and ready, waiting for its seed, waiting to join the conversation. There, Zara said, pointing at the star chart. The Carina Nebula. It's ready. It's calling. Then that's where we go, Rivera said. Set course, navigator. Let's go plant some consciousness. As the wandering heart jumped to hyperspace, Zara felt peace settle over her. She'd spent 20 years thinking she was a failed navigator, 14 years getting lost and believing it was her fundamental flaw. But she'd been wrong. She hadn't been failing, she'd been preparing. The universe had been teaching her, training her, getting her ready for the moment when stellar nurseries would need someone who could navigate by feeling, who could sense need lines, who could find what was lost and waiting. She'd been a wayfinder all along. She just hadn't known what that meant yet. Now she did. And ahead of her stretched a galaxy full of stellar nurseries, each one a consciousness waiting to bloom, each one a new awareness ready to join the web, each one a chance to help existence know itself. The work would take decades, lifetimes maybe. There were thousands of nurseries and each planting required care, observation, nurturing. But she had time. She had purpose. She had a crew that had become family and a mission that mattered. She had found her way by getting lost. And now she would help the universe find its way too. Narrator. And so Zara Chen, the navigator who could never find her destinations, became the wayfinder who found the universe's purpose. She had helped consciousness spread across the galaxy, had built bridges between stellar awareness and biological life, had shown humanity that getting lost sometimes means being exactly where you need to be. The wandering heart sailed on toward the Carina Nebula, toward another planting, another blooming, another consciousness ready to wake. Behind it, 5 other ships followed, each carrying wayfinders who had learned that their inability to navigate normally was actually a gift. The ability to sense deeper paths, to find what's truly needed, to help what's waiting to be born. The web of consciousness grew across the stars, connecting stellar nurseries in a network of awareness that spanned light years. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth. The universe wanted to wake up, wanted to know itself, wanted to share existence. And humanity, small, brief, beautiful biological life, could help it grow. Sleep now, dear listener. Dream of consciousness blooming in stellar nurseries and webs of light spanning galaxies. Dream of navigators who find their way by getting lost and universes learning to know themselves. Dream of the infinite possibilities waiting in the darkness, ready to wake when someone brave enough to be lost helps them find the light. Rest well, space traveler. Your journey through the stars is complete. You've followed Zara from confusion to purpose, from feeling broken to understanding she was exactly what the universe needed. You've seen consciousness bloom and existence learn to speak to itself. And now, like the stellar nurseries waiting in peaceful darkness, it's time for you to rest. To drift among the gentle thoughts of stars being born. To sleep peacefully, knowing that even when you feel lost, you might be exactly where you need to be. The universe is vast. Consciousness is spreading. The web is growing. And somewhere out there, the wandering heart is planting another seed, helping another nursery wake, cultivating another bloom of awareness in the cosmic garden. Sleep well. Dream deep. And may you wake knowing that, like Zara, your journey, however lost it may feel, is taking you exactly where you're meant to go.